Some currently is not in the perfect. Come on. It's not that. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming today. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the lands and waterways in which we visit today. Today we are on Camaragal lands. I'd like to thank the elders past, present and emerging for the continued custodianship. And thank you very much, everybody. And today we have a confirmation of candidature for IPPE PhD student, Aysheshim. And I'd like to introduce the supervisory panel, Associate Professor Adrian Forsyth as co-supervisor, led by Associate Professor Taryn Sanders as his principal. And today's CSC review panel, our expert panel members are Dr. George Thomas from the University of Queensland. Welcome, George. Thank you. And also Dr. Evelyn Parr from ACU as well, all led by Professor Jessie Gow as chair here at IPPE in our breakout room. So without any further ado, the floor is yours. Thanks, Ashley.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving the chance to present my presentation. So my title is data assessment among children and adolescent using wearable camera, especially for developing and evaluation of matching framework. So my presentation outline having background research gap and proposed studies. So coming to the definition, data assessment is now assessed with different parameters, most focusing on what the children and adolescents have put in, especially focusing on nutrient intake and diet quality. With different parameters. Those parameters might be the part of current intake assessment level, but doesn't capture or give insight for how the children were and what information might be is missing while using data assessment. So during using this assessment, especially for in terms of resource and other constraints, mostly common questionnaire and conventional assessment method of data assessment method of suffering a lot of methodological limitation. Among those limitations, measurement gap is one of measurement bias is one of the methodological limitations due to record bias, desired bias, and reporting and other bias which need for underestimate for of data assessment. The other might be the other is behavioral limitation due to change or behavioral reactivity change where or during observation of dietary assessment methods. The other is limit or capturing those special for determinant factor where what and other will be are the most methodological limitation, which is the total need for inaccurate dietary estimation and capturing of information, especially for behavioral and environmental factors, which is an important determinant factor for futuring or designing interventions. So as from the methodological limitation, most of the conventional dietary assessment doesn't capture for special eating behaviors. So eating behavior map, especially for my target groups, especially adolescents and children, are the most critical group for growth and development. Most of the adulthood anthropometric head growth are achieved during this period. So it's critical for concerning our giving attention for eating behavior, and also this tracks for the long-term health impact, especially overweight and other diet-related problems, and also smarter for shaping the future diet pattern and intakes. So understanding this eating behavior is important for the design intervention and proposed intervention as per the finding. So despite this importance, measuring eating behavior is difficult due to different factors. Those are measuring eating behavior are very complex with different factors and also dynamic with time, place, and other parameters. And also social environment, and other so many factors to affect accurate estimation of eating behavior among children and adolescents. Especially questionnaire-based and conventional or traditional dietary assessment methods. To address this limitation, especially for the most prominent approach will be suggest to address this critical problem, such as wearable camera data assessment are proposed important to address this limitation. So why wearable camera is important for addressing this limitation? Because wearable camera objectively capture and timely capture those important information what we miss from traditional or conventional data assessment, where the child is, what type of food may have eat, and how the people may have also interact during eating it. Such information are captured during using wearable cameras, and also wearable cameras that doesn't depend for memories as of conventional data assessment method is so important for reducing recall bias. So that method is not capturing the image, but wearable cameras also methodological limitation, especially for interpreting and coding of images to give a meaningful information. So among the limitation, lack of standardized coding framework is one of the methodological limitations for using wearable camera. In fact, advantages paramount. So as from this image, there is a same image which captured by using wearable camera, but the interpretation and the coding are differ. From the first one is focusing on dietary intake or what the child eat. It misses environmental and contextual factor. The second also focusing on contextual factors is missed for food type and portion size. The second is focusing on environmental factors missed for detailed diet plan and portion size. So it indicates that there is different definition criteria procedure to set the same objective. So coming to the research gap, the existing coding framework are different in terms of definition, protocol, criteria, and the scope. So it's affect for lack of comparability among studies, and it's affect for full evidence, generating full evidence. In addition to that, the existing evidence are limit evaluation or feasibility and reliability. So it's affect also scalability and utilized for across different researchers. So this highlights that the need for standardized conceptual framework to enable comparing of studies and across different area and different target groups. So based on the gap, I propose three research approaches. The first one is systematic review. The second is methodological development based on the finding, and also the third one is evaluate the development method or evaluation of the conceptual standard coding framework. So coming to the study one is focusing on systematic review on validity, reliability, and coding framework. So this study is answer for assess what is the existing validity, reliability among children for dietary assessment, especially for using wearable camera, and what will be the existing evidence on coding framework and what approach will be followed. So this study has answered this question. So we follow different eligible criteria to ascertain this to answer this research question. The first one is target population is children from 1 to 19 years, and the studies have wearable camera set for especially passive wearable camera for assessing dietary assessment, and also studies have published and graduate literature will be the eligible criteria to provide most comprehensive findings. So based on this eligible criteria, we will search using different databases as well as different searching concepts to find the most comprehensive research article to generate or to assess validity, reliability, and coding framework. Then we'll follow the different procedures starting from searching screening, data extraction, and also analysis based on different terms using different approaches. The second objective is development coding framework using wearable cameras. So this study will address through using existing evidence and Delphi approach or expert consensus. So this study have answered the research question for how the standardized coding framework will be developed from wearable cameras. So we have followed different processes. The process among those processes have evidence and size from existing evidences or from previous studies or systematically. After synthesize the evidence, we'll also use Delphi approach for evaluating the existing or the frames. Then we'll finalize the framework. So the process, especially the first three processes are synthesize the existing evidence. So we'll extract different components or constructs like definition, procedure, criteria, outcome ascertainment will be extracted from the first study or the systematic review one or study one. So we will extract all important information from the first study. Then after extracting all information, we'll group into related dietary behavior. So we can group into domains or higher level framework approaches. So we'll group those important information. Then after grouping, we'll build a first draft coding framework documents. So this document might contain definition, criteria, procedure, manuals, and other clear information. After this is the synthesize process. After synthesize, we'll invite or we'll go to the next step for Delphi approaches with multidisciplinary approaches from nutrition expert, dietitian, measurement experts, psychologists, and wearable technology expert will be invited to evaluate the developed frameworks. Then we will also follow different rounds. Round one, round two depend on the final assessment. Then after the response, after the approaching of the response, we will also finalize or approve the coding framework. And after finalize the coding framework, or in study 2, study 3 will evaluate the coding framework with empirical evidences. Those empirical evidence will be obtained from the Kid Vision project wearable camera data. So this research question map, this study map answer is that the developed coding framework will answer for reliability and feasibilities for assessing the coding frameworks. So the design will be methodological evaluation design. Further the feasibility and reliability of the developed coding framework. So the children will be aged from 7 to 12 years, and the data will also collect for North-South Australia, and also the data will be television project. So we have already obtained the ethical, but we'll follow ethical approach, especially for wearable camera ethical approach during coding and analysis as per the protocol. So we'll follow the ethical process and data handling during coding and analysis of or interpreting this data. So the evaluation of different phases or the procedure of different phases. So the first will be standardizer before coding and interpreting the data. Will standardize those rules might be guideline, definition, procedure, criteria, and decision-making level will be applied and standardized. Then after standardized, we'll provide training for coders to familiarize the frameworks and make consensus and similar understanding. Then after that, we can view the image, spatial image review for capturing eating soils, identify eating relevant behavior and chronological order of the images. Then after that we can dual coding of by assign coders by dual coding to identify the agreement between coders and also identify different weakness area for refinement of the coding framework. Here is the evaluation outcome. After the procedure, the outcome will be reliability, those agreements between coder and within coder, and also feasibility. Those feasibility will be measured by time per image or time per total data sets, as well as challenge you are imaging or interpret the data, and also this will be measured by dominant level or structural level component will be assessed, the feasibility component. So the analysis will be using special for relevant analysis will be kappa for categorical variable and that's for continuous variable with for the analysis of the outcome variables, and feasibility can be measured by coding time, proportion of image can be coded, and proportion of image and user image and other challenge will be considered. So here is a timeline for my PhD journey. Thank you for my supervisor for continuous support and guidance. Thank you.
Okay, very well. Hand over to Professor Gao. Chair.
Congratulations. I think this is a very promising methodological project. I got two questions. The first one is about the scope and the contribution of the thesis. Related to scope, like in the title itself, there's a dietary assessment, right? But your proposed framework seems to me is more focused on eating behavior or eating context rather than dietary intake or portion dimension. So could you clarify like what kind of construct your framework, coding framework like is targeting?
Thank you very much for the critical concept. So my scope is focusing on eating behavior.
Okay, so it's more narrowed down to eating behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that needs to be clarified.
Yeah.
The second one is like related to the system, the product of the system. So it's a bit unclear for me. It's like, what's the product of this? Is that a dietary assessment method or a coding framework for eating behavior or a methodological framework for analyzing wearable camera data? Could you clarify that? What's the product of this?
Yeah, the protocol will be, thank you very much, will be the coding framework. The first one is the ultimate one will develop a methodological advancement for assessing eating behavior, especially wearable camera data.
So it's like, it's a coding framework for eating behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. My second question is about your framework development. So could you walk us through an example how a construct identified in your study one become a code in your final framework? Related to this, like what's the unit of coding? Is it an image based or just eating episode or the behavior event or like participant day? So what's the unit of coding, and could you give us an example how the construct identified study one become the code in your final coding framework?
Yeah, thank you. I think the final one will be image coding or image change into meaningful data. But the coding framework will start from the previous studies, coding protocol guides and other. Then I will standardize those coding procedures. Then after, the third objective will be evaluate based on the image data.
So it's image data.
Yeah.
So it's the same as your study 3, right? Your study 3.
Study series
is based on image.
Yeah, study series based on existing image.
Okay. Yeah. Any questions from the panel member? George?
George?
Emily?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. first of all, congratulations, Aysheshim. I think this is a really great proposal, and presenting a body of work like this is never a small task. So just a really well done initially for that. Also, big thanks to Taryn and Adrian for inviting me to be part of the panel and just acknowledging their support in developing a really nice, coherent program of research. I think, you know, the progression from the review to the framework development and evaluation is really logical and makes a lot of sense. I think for me personally, I found this work particularly interesting as it aligns very closely with some of the work that we're currently doing here at UQ around developing a screen use taxonomy. So it's nice to see lots of shared approaches, including the Delphi study and testing the framework using wearable camera data. I think both across your written document and presentation, you've clearly identified an important gap here, particularly related to the assessment of dietary behaviours in children and adolescents. I think the overall program of work is really well considered, and particularly just wanted to highlight that your document was very easy to follow and well written. So at this stage, that's really great to see. So I think my feedback and questions today are really about strengthening what is already a really solid foundation and acknowledging that there's still, you know, we're still very much in the early days and don't expect you to answer all the questions, but some things to perhaps to ponder on. So one of the things I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into is how you think the systematic review actually feeds into the development of the coding framework. So you've clearly outlined what you want to extract from the literature, and there's an impressive breadth of outcomes that you're going to be including, such as validity, reliability, dietary intake, and coding procedures. But as you mentioned, there's likely to be considerable heterogeneity across those studies in terms of coding procedures. So I was wondering if you could just talk me through what your thinking is in terms of moving from synthesizing the actual literature to actually constructing that first version of the coding framework, or prototype, if you will, particularly given those differences in how studies actually define and classify eating behaviors.
Thank you very much for the critical concept. I think the systematic review of broad in terms of target group and outcome. So I think I will synthesize those systematic review based on one is subgroup analysis for based on the outcome and age differences, and also the type of the camera and other. If the other option, it might not be, it might also affect. The other option will be I will narrate the analysis and schematize for informing the second object.
Sure. Yeah, that's really helpful. I think it's good to hear that you're thinking about this now, and I think it will form a really nice part of actually rationalizing the review in the first place when you start writing that study up. For study 2, I think the Delphi approach is really well thought through and appropriate for developing a coding framework like this. And perhaps if I could just draw on some of my own experience in designing a Delphi study at the moment to design this screen use taxonomy, one of the key challenges that we've had is ensuring that it doesn't just reach conceptual agreement, but also real world usability. So particularly considering people that will use the framework beyond academics, you know, maybe parents, end users, teachers, practitioners. So I'd really be interested to hear a little bit more about your thinking in terms of who the participants in your Delphi study will be and why those individuals are best placed to inform the framework.
The participants include from the Delphi approach will be different experts. I understand the challenge, but we will manage systematically to attain the tracing of those Delphi verbs. One is we'll also invite from different dimensions and also sorry.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's early days, so you know, you don't have to have all the answers in terms of who those consumers will be on the panel, but something to think about in terms of ensuring you're striking the right balance of participants and making sure you're getting lots of perspectives into that framework. So it's good to know you're thinking of that. Perhaps if I could just squeeze one more question, I promise I'll shut up. But if I could just turn to study 3. And I appreciate this study is much further down the track, but again, perhaps drawing on some of my own experience of coding wearable camera data, One of the things that I found quite challenging was how the complexity of coding can differ depending on the type of image you're coding for. So to give an example, for me, in the work that I do, it was often much harder to code for the content of a screen-based device than the actual type of device alone. So I wonder whether or not in your study, if you've given any thought to whether, reliability or feasibility might actually differ across the types of eaten events or context that you're coding for. So perhaps in your space, it might be something whether the example might be whether it's distinguishing between a more complex eating episode with multiple foods versus maybe a simpler, just single snack-based event. Do you foresee any challenges with the differences there?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, but we expect the challenge. So those challenges will be addressed. We clearly define the procedure, the protocol, and manual guidelines to address this ambiguity, and also provide structure and training, and also the criteria might be how the image will be coded, uncoded, and such information will be clearly left and right from the manual. So the manual will be guide all procedures.
Great. Thank you very much. That's everything from me for now. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Hibala?
Thank you. And echoing what George said, you've done a wonderful job to pull everything together in this first 6 months of your PhD and get to this point of, having these 3 studies that you're going to be undertaking. I guess I've got a wider lens, pun intended, a question or series of questions about what you're doing. I guess your work relies on the assumption that camera footage in this population is acceptable in terms of children being filmed or wearing cameras. Is there going to be any, analysis within any of your studies that take that into consideration or that?
Thank you very much. Especially for wearable camera, recommendation will be children, especially children 5 and above. And others below that, the children may not be considered wearing, but the mother or the caregiver wear wearable camera. That's why we will find more comprehensive information or finding on the emerging assessment tools.
Okay. So you're not doing any, there's no investigation as to whether people are willing to use or the level of acceptability of using camera footage to collect dietary information as a part of your systematic review?
Yeah, our systematic review is also doesn't concern on the feasibility studies. So concerning our validity and reliability.
Okay. Yep. Yep. And I believe you might have just answered it, but I'm sorry I didn't catch it properly. You're including in all of your studies and in the Delphi work and study 2 that this footage may be worn by the parent or more maybe by the child, and how are you going to distinguish that when you're looking at the reliability and validity, because I'm guessing there's going to be some differences there.
Sorry, for study 2?
I mean, mainly study 1, because I guess you're synthesizing the literature, and in the literature there may be some studies that have used parent-worn cameras and some that have used child-worn cameras. I'm assuming, not my research area. So I'm again, you can also say that this is totally doesn't make sense, or Adrian or Taryn can, not going to be offended, but are you going to end up, or is it likely from what your reading has been so far, that some of the camera capturing has been from the parent's view and some is from the children's view, and how are you going to be able to synthesize that together when you're looking at the reliability and validity?
Thank you very much. I will synthesize based on the stratification of age and target groups. And there are also other parameters to be considered subgroup as well as the stratification.
Aysheshim, what Evelyn's asking is, will the wearable camera data in the systematic review just be wearable camera data from children, or will it be from other participants as well?
Especially children, thank you very much. Especially children less than 5 years, the target group will be the mothers or the caregivers.
Yeah, so they
I also wanted you to just, it was very quick in your presentation. I wondered if you could provide a bit more detail into the timeline of the Delphi process for study 2. It looked like you'd allowed about 4 months for I believe you've got 3 steps for the Delphi process, and George has already asked about, my other question about what type of individuals you're going to include in that process, because I think the consumer is really valuable lens to also have in there. But yeah, I just wondered if you could just talk us through the steps of the Delphi process and how long that you've allowed for that to take.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We believe the Delphi process will take 4 months, because more than 4 months, the attrition rate might be increased, and also the participant might increase the dropout rate. So most of the huge task or work will be finalized in evidence synthesis steps. So we will finalize or end up the Delphi approach within 4 months after drafting the document.
Yeah, I think you should just consider how long it's going to take to send everything out to the experts, wait for them to have their responses, bring them back, collate it all together to reformulate to go out for your second round and then your third round. It seems like all of your studies are hinged on each other. So any delay in one study is going to push into delay from study 1 is going to push into study 2 and study 3. So I think it's just something to flag to consider at this stage in your candidature. The last main question that I had was around when you're getting to the coding process in study 3. Is there any sort of AI that could be useful in identifying when the eating occasions are occurring? I assume this is a very lengthy process to code, and I wasn't clear of how many hours of footage, or because you sort of had put there that you were coding eating events and also non-eating events. But is there any sort of AI or any sort of tool that can be used to facilitate cleaning the data to know where those eating event times land, apart from relying on usual clock times, which don't always work for children from personal experience, as to when they actually eat. But I wondered if you'd thought about any tool that might be able to be useful in that process.
Thank you very much. During coding, my plan is using manual coding rather than AI approach, because AI approach may have need quality and big data set. So I use manual coding, but the ultimate goal for standardized coding framework will be moved or scale up to AI approach. But currently I'm not using the AI approach.
Okay.
Thanks, El.
Thanks. That's all from me for now.
Thank you. I'm just cognizant of time, so I'm just going to open it up to one question from the audience. Right now, you guys please fight it out.
I mean, excellent plan. It's not my field of research, a practical question. So I imagine a child wearing a camera, right? Would it be possible for the child to eat something, the camera doesn't notice that, right? So is the camera really catching all the eating situations? And then the related second question is, you asked that in the beginning, right? What is the child eating? For example, I mean, there are so many different types of chocolate, all looking the same, but the content in terms of sugar differs drastically. right? So how is that done practically in these studies?
Thank you very much. Practically, this study may have address, the first one is address the methodological issue, the first, then also test those methods rather than identify the individual food groups. So that is the main point from this study. Maybe.
So they can. Yeah. I heard one last question. Thank you.
Okay, actually, I got a couple of questions.
John can first.
One is the framework. I mean, it seems to me that a generalized framework would not be very useful. A framework has to be idiosyncratic to what you want to look at. And so a generalized framework wouldn't be useful. It would have to be a framework that had some compromise between what you specifically want to look at in generalizability. Okay, that was one issue. The second issue is you don't have a standard against which to evaluate your results. You're going to get iterated reliability. I guess your meta-analysis will give you some help. I know another study that I'm working on that's a little bit like this. There's two things that they're doing that may or may not be useful for you. One is they're doing a pretest. So they're having them do coding, naive coding before they get training, and then show that the training makes a huge difference, hopefully. Another possibility is that when I work with a new statistical tool, I use simulated data to see if it works. Something you might be able to do is you could have some simulate that are designed specifically to be such and such. And then you could evaluate whether or not the raters get that right. Okay, those are just ideas.
Good. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Once again, thanks to Aysheshim. Please, round of applause. Thank you, everybody here and also online. George, Evelyn, Adrienne, can I ask you to stay online and I'll transfer you over to the boardroom for deliberations. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.